Bonjour. Buenos días, Carlos. Thank you very much for the introduction. I can understand French a little bit from working with people like Carlos and other people in Paris and in Toulouse on trying to grow the Fab Lab network, not only in France, but also in Europe and the world. As Carlos said, I am Venezuelan. I could understand that. I could understand that I am Venezuelan. A country with some difficulties now, but somehow it's a reflect of the current economic model and probably the current organization of power in the world that actually is creating this kind of contradiction. So for the ones that have some doubts about the future, I think that I recommend you go to Venezuela and you can see how we distribute it. So please let me know if my connection kind of changes. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and I wanted to start with this quote from Jane Jacobs, and I think Jane Jacobs is quite relevant today. Writer and activist that actually was fighting for the rights of the citizens in the development of New York, when all the massive construction of new buildings and also highways started to kill somehow the idea of the neighborhood. She was standing with people and trying to protect the idea of the productive neighborhoods and the idea of the city created by the activities. No, I think that today we have a unique opportunity to recover the Jane Jacobs spirit, especially thanks to the development of digital technologies and actually the empowerment that we have been somehow being part of during the last decade, especially which is basically you have a computer in your pockets that actually is connected to the internet, which could be, it is already a mechanism to produce content. So you can produce tweets, you can produce pictures and share it in real time with anyone, and you can produce videos or articles, you can become a journalist. So imagine that with these tools that right now are in your pocket and somehow they are determining how you move in the city, how you relate with people, and how somehow you take some decisions, we can relate it more directly with the physical world and how we can use digital technologies in order to transform our reality with the use of fabrication technologies that are available today in Fab Labs. No? Fab Labs are fabrication spaces, and actually right now it's a network of people also that are trying to democratize the access to the means of production. I work in Fab Lab Barcelona, as Carlos said. I co-founded the Fab Lab 10 years ago. We actually celebrated our anniversary in the 21st of May. And basically during these last 10 years, we have not been only growing our own Fab Lab, but we have been helping to grow the global network of fabrication laboratories together with the Center for Bits and Atoms at MIT, is where the Fab Labs started, and also together with the Fab Foundation, which is an organization that has been recently created in order to support the growth of Fab Labs around the world. So Fab Lab Barcelona is part of the Institute for Advanced Architecture of Catalonia, and I'm just going to, knowing that I have something like 15 minutes, I will try to somehow navigate you quickly through some links and some of the stuff we do, and then I will open to some interaction. During these last 10 years, our Fab Lab has been nurturing, let's say, the impact of digital fabrication in learning architecture, for instance, learning design, but also connecting it with the city itself, no? Through the workshops that we do with kids, with schools around the neighborhood, and so on. No? But also, more importantly, I think that within our Fab Lab, we have been able to create an ecosystem in Barcelona and trying to expand the impact of that ecosystem around the world. Some of the projects that we have been doing during these years involve, citizen sensor devices, textile, let's say, interventions to make to embed technology into different types of fashion and garments. Houses itself, we did the Fab Lab house in 2010, which is a Fab Lab, a house completely made in a Fab Lab. Apologies. And somehow we have been trying to demonstrate that actually in a Fab Lab you can make something that goes from the size of your hand to actually to the impact of an entire city. So as I was saying before, our lab wouldn't be nothing without the global collaboration. And when we open our, you can count the number of Fab Labs with the two hands, let's say. So you would somehow like 10 Fab Labs in 2007. Today, April, in the year 2017, we have 1,124 Fab Labs that have been registered in this. I'm going to close my WhatsApp messages because it's kind of distracting. So we have 1,024 Fab Labs articulated. We have developed in our lab of the Fab Labs, and somehow it's kind of you can call it like a Facebook. They are doing, and which are the Fab Labs that are close to them. And even though I can actually start a discussion or directly contact the teams that are behind the Fab Lab. So in a way, we are trying to connect inside this platform the idea of not only places, but also the machines that are available in these places, which is all the equipment that you can find in a Fab Lab, from a laser cutter to a 3D printer, 3D scanners, vinyl cutters, large CNC machines that you can use to make furniture. But actually, how to turn these tools in meaningful means to make projects that can transform society. And this is where the other part of the Fab Lab network is important. It's actually not only spreading the knowledge about digital fabrication, but actually bringing the idea of returning back this knowledge into projects that can transform somehow our society. So, for instance, there is a kind of more artistic projects. This project is developed in our lab together with an artist from Belgium, Annemie Maes, and she was doing a solar power beehive that actually you can put sensors in. It is. Let's say the decline of the population of the bees is a big thing for us. The bees are responsible for 30% of the food that we consume. So we can use technology to actually, address the more critical problems that we're having today. And this is just a small one that we can identify. So there are many more projects that you can actually dig into this platform, which is FabLabs.io. And one of the key ones that actually I wanted to talk about a little bit more, especially in this forum about smart cities, is the idea of the smart citizen. And this is a project that we created in our lab around 5 years ago. And basically, using the open source tools that we can find in the Fab Lab, we created a sensor device that any citizen can install in its house and can start to measure the pollution in the city. That could be from sound, that could be from the air pollution, the temperature, and so on. No? So what we do with this data is actually that we allow the citizens to use their own Wi-Fi networks to actually upload this data into an online platform. And on top of this platform, we provide an application, but also an API. The API allows anyone to build on top of it applications around, could be mobility, could be urban farming, could be anything that people want to use our data from in order to make it meaningful for everyone else. In this model, the data produced by the citizen is owned by the citizen. And one of the next iterations that we're doing in the Smart Citizen project is actually creating or trying to implement the blockchain on top of our API in order to start to experiment with the idea of creating new data economies. So this is the ecosystem of a smart citizen, as I was telling you, is the kid producing the data, uploading it into the platform, but also providing an API, a REST API, in order for anyone to, let's say, somehow use this data in order to produce meaningful applications for them. So I wanted to show you also how this data looks like, in a way, if I go and check Plaza del Sol and apply, this is going to show you somehow some of the kits that we are using in an experiment that we are doing in the Plaza del Sol in Barcelona. It's one of the plazas in the Gracia neighborhood. Gracia neighborhood is one of the most compact neighborhoods of the city. And in these experiments, basically what we're doing is giving to citizens sensors that they can use to measure the pollution of the noise pollution in the plaza. As you can see, when I click here, I get to the person behind the sensor itself, and also I start to see which has been the last readings of the sensor during the last couple of days. And somehow I can start a discussion here with this person if I want to talk to them. So this is a small example of what is the potential of creating open source technologies inside Fab Labs and how this could scale up into an application into the city. Do you have any comments or questions for now? I guess not. So I will, please let me know. I feel like I'm talking to a screen. So the next project I want to talk about, and somehow probably I will close with this brief introduction of Fab Labs and the potential impact of Fab Labs, is actually the Fab City, which is somehow thinking about the future of the cities in the context of distributed manufacturing and distributed production. So we are living today in an economic model that somehow has been constructed from our productive model based on industrialization, right? So the access of means of production has been concentrated in small hands, and these few hands somehow need to manage these resources, and all the rest of our economy is constructed on the administration of a scarcity somehow. But in the context of distributed production, we basically are going to have abundance. And then in order to administrate or manage abundance, we will need to think about our economy and about our relationship with power and organization of power in totally different terms. Why I'm saying this? Because right now, it's inside Fab Labs, and Fab Labs are growing exponentially. You can make almost anything, right? You can make things at small scale, and somehow this is it's a very niche market today, if you want to call it. But they're growing exponentially. Technology is being more available. It's more available every day. It's cheaper. It's faster. It's better. Machines are being able to replicate themselves. We are just starting to see the potentials of artificial intelligence. We're starting to see the potential about synthetic biology and how to replace some, materials and natural sourced, for instance, food. We can replace it with synthetic grown meat. So somehow this is going to change dramatically and fundamentally how we distribute our resources today in the world. So we won't have to have deforestation in the Amazon in order to produce meat for people to eat hamburgers in Milano, for instance. So you can have burger stores in which people can actually grow their own meat and eat the meat on demand. But actually, if you look somehow, you do some research into the internet, you can find today that companies like Adidas is experimenting on production on demand of of footwear and also of clothes. No, so we're gonna see how businesses are going to be moving into more like a production on demand model, and this is connected with all the revolution around the industry 4.0, in order to get back into the cities. So imagine that somehow we're going to have cities that in the current model, and we can call it PITO because we import products into the cities that fly thousands of kilometers around the world in order to satisfy our demands. And in the cities, we produce a lot of trash. And this trash basically goes to our environment and it's creating two basic crises. The fundamental crises we have today are, in one hand, environmental, because the consequence of our model of development is really bad for the keeping the balance in the planet. And in the other hand, is social, because we, in the Western world, people, we are losing the knowledge on how things are made. We are becoming more and more dependent on, and the imports that are coming from some other places in the world. And at the same time, we're keeping slaves working for us 16 hours a day for a very low price. No, so these two crises can be somehow tackled with the idea of moving from that model in which cities import products and produce trash to bringing the productivity back to the city, being able to produce energy locally, being able to produce food locally, and being able to produce things locally with the tools of digital fabrication. So this model, we call it DIDO, which is called data in, data out, meaning that you have a circular economy model. I actually prefer to talk about the spiral economy model inside the cities. Materials circulates locally, and then the only thing that travels around the world is information. So this project, basically, this articulates all what is the Fab City project is. You can know more in our website fab.city. But basically, what we have managed is to commit publicly cities from around the world, including Paris or including Toulouse or the Occitanie region, in order to be 50% productive, meaning that by 2054, we are committing cities to become locally productive and globally connected under this Fab City model. So if you want to know more, you can check in the Fab City website. We have a white paper, and you can also get involved by different ways. You can send us an email. You can join the discussions in our Slack team. You can find our repositories in GitHub, and you can contribute to the project as you want. So I think that with this, I have my 15 minutes. I want to stick to the time, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Tomas. Very, thank you very much.
Muchas gracias a vosotros, and have a great day, and hope you enjoy the conference. Bye bye. Thanks. Bye bye. Thanks.